Absolutely beautiful, Beth. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to this glorious morning, this glorious day, and this glorious opportunity to be together in this community. A time of joy, comfort, and sometimes challenges. Our congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County, is a place where we come to learn to be more human. We're not here because we've figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. We are here to learn more about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. Thank you for joining us, either in person or online. We are happy you are with us. My name is Cindy Nelson. I've been a member for 10 years, and it is always a privilege to be here as your service leader. A special welcome to our visitors. And I do see a number of visitor tags today. So if you are comfortable doing so, please stand and introduce yourselves and perhaps tell us where you're from and how you found us. We'll start over here.
Russ, my wife Kitty, with greetings from Olympia Brown Church in Racine. For a week. We'll come back one more time.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
I'm John. I'm from Verona, Wisconsin. I am heading out a couple days, so I won't be here. Hopefully be back.
But next time you come through, okay? Welcome. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Well, welcome to everyone. A gentle reminder to turn off cell phones and other devices that may interrupt our service. Our talkback will commence about 15 minutes after the service has ended. This gives you time to grab a cup of tea or coffee, chat a bit, and then join us over in this area. Speaking of talkback, let me introduce our speaker, although many of you have met her from times before, the Reverend Christina Leon Tracy. Christina has shared other messages with us, and we are certainly pleased she has chosen to return. She serves the Fox Valley UU Fellowship. She's been there since 2017 and was in Texas prior to Wisconsin. So she has been ministering steadily for the past 12 years. Although she loves what she does, everyone needs a break sometimes. And starting in November, she will be on sabbatical for 4 months, she said, where she will rest, rejuvenate, and immerse herself in Spanish so that she may better serve the immigrant population in the Valley. Thank you, Christina, for being with us. At this time, if we have any announcements for the good of the fellowship, Bruce has the mic. Please raise your hand. He'll come around with it. Any announcements? Beth?
Good morning, everyone. Just an announcement about the second hymn that we'll be singing today, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. There are 3 verses that are sung, and at the very end, we go to a final repeat. And in that repeat, there's several repeats. So just listen to me. We'll flow through it. You'll do beautifully, but just wanted to give you a heads up about that particular hymn. And then also, I just always like to give a little bit of background about why I pick some of the things I pick, because even I sometimes wonder why I pick the things I pick. But I have to say, Christina's theme today about googly eyes was a little interesting to jar my imagination. So the first piece was one I remember from a movie that came out when I was in high school. And it was a romantic love story, but I thought about that through the eyes of love really seemed to fit the theme. For the offertory, it actually comes from wedding music, an old tune, Oh Promise Me, and it was written as a gift from one sister to another. So I just thought that was a really lovely way to think about love. And then the final one, I have to confess, comes from memories of my own childhood. My grandfather used to love a lot of these Charleston era songs, and so I'd like playing them for him when he was visiting. And then I had a cousin my age who at one point went through a whole phase of belting out things like from vaudeville. So I have memories of my cousin Wendy just belting out this song as her sister pounded the piano with her. So bear with me. They just are things I think might be familiar to all of us, but they made me think about love in all different kinds of facets.
So Beth, your beautiful playing and your love of music has a background to it.
For better or for worse.
Any other announcements? Okay, thank you. Let us begin our service by lighting our chalice with words from Orlando Brugnola. Flame, friend of our most ancient ancestors, we kindle you now to make you visible in this time. Yet in truth, you burn always in the unique worth of each person, in the imagination, in the turning of the heart to sorrow or joy, in the call to hope, and in the call to justice. Burn bright before us, burn bright within us. Please stand as you are able to sing hymn number 1053, How Could Anyone? And then please stay standing to say the unison affirmation and to sing the doxology. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. From all that dwell below the stars, And now to share our personal joys and concerns, an integral part of this community. Together, we share the happiness so that we may rejoice with each other, and the sorrow because together we can lessen the burden. Again, Bruce has the mic. If anyone has a joy or concern. Peggy?
I'm happy to announce that Nancy Raffel is home from the hospital. She's been in the hospital for a couple of weeks, and she didn't want everyone to know, but I'm telling you now that she's home and recuperating, and she didn't tell me not to.
Hi, Pam Good. Some of you may know that I volunteer every Wednesday at SCAND in the memory care unit doing the art project. And I'm in desperate need of at least one more volunteer. For one volunteer died recently, and another one has a seriously ill husband. So if anybody is interested in knowing what that involves, please see me after the service. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Christina. I'm your preacher this morning, and I have my son here, Nevin. He's 7 years old, and he's very well behaved for sitting in church. But my husband and other younger son are in the classroom in the back playing. Usually, my husband takes them out to go do something more fun while I'm preaching, but he's suffering from vertigo this morning. So we've got him on some Dramamine, but your prayers and wishes for healing quickly would be wonderful because we're planning to stay here for 3 more days. And I don't want him to be dealing with vertigo the whole time.
And we don't want him to. Any other joys and concerns? Thank you, Bruce. It's time for our offering, contributing as we can to sustain our fellowship and the works that we believe in. Thank you, as always, for your generosity. Before we have our moment of quiet, I just want everyone to know there is a video and some pictures today to see. So if you are in a position where you cannot see the screen, you may want to reposition yourselves now at this time. If anybody wants to, to move. Okay.
You don't want to miss the pictures.
Okay, then let's please take a moment of quiet to center ourselves so that we may be open to the message that Christina has prepared for us.
Good morning. What a gorgeous day we got. Thank you all for being here instead of on your boat or somewhere else. It's wonderful to see you all. We have 2 readings this morning. The first is from a website called Ethics Unwrapped from the University of Texas, and it's just a short explanation of something called the fundamental attribution error. The fundamental attribution error is the tendency that people have to overemphasize personal characteristics and ignore situational factors in judging other people's behavior. Because of the fundamental attribution error, we tend to believe that others do bad things because they are bad people. We're inclined to ignore situational factors that might have played a role. For example, if someone cuts us off while driving, our first thought might be, "What a jerk," instead of considering the possibility that the driver might be rushing to the airport. On the flip side, when we cut someone off in traffic, we tend to convince ourselves that we had to do so. We focus on situational factors like being late to a meeting, and we ignore what our behavior might say about our own character. For example, in one study, when something bad happened to someone else, subjects blamed that person's behavior on their personality 65% of the time. But when something bad happened to them, they blamed themselves only 44% of the time, blaming the situation they were in more often. So the fundamental attribution error explains why we often judge others harshly while letting ourselves off the hook at the same time by rationalizing our own unethical behavior. Reading number 2 is from the author Valerie Kaur. The book was called See No Stranger, and this is an excerpt. I started a simple practice. As I move through my day and come across a face on the street or on the screen or on the subway, I say in my mind, sister, brother, sibling, aunt, uncle. I start to wonder about each of them as a person. When I do this, I am retraining my mind to see them more and more kinds of people as part of us rather than them. I practice this with animals and with parts of the earth too. I say in my mind, you are a part of me that I do not know yet. I practice orienting to the world with wonder, preparing myself for the possibility of connection. We all absorb stereotypes, but we can undo what has been done to us. In recent years, breakthroughs in neuroscience demonstrate the plasticity of the brain, that we can rewire neural circuits throughout our lifetimes. Experience can lead to structural changes in the brain in a matter of months. And these changes can occur even more rapidly in response to continuous repetition. In this manner, scientific discoveries dovetail with traditions of spiritual training. We become what we practice. It is possible to train ourselves to see others differently, to see no stranger. There comes a point in the aftermath of cruelty or injury when I start to wonder about my opponent. Why did they do that? Say that, believe that, vote that way? What is at stake for them? What is driving their behavior? And I want to find out. Sometimes it's not safe for me to do this. And when it is safe, though, I think about how I could listen to their story. One might say, why should anyone try to listen to the white nationalists marching in the street, or the demagogue locking children in cages, or a former abuser? For too long, marginalized people have been asked to feel for their oppressors at the expense of their own dignity. Enough. We have a right to withhold our empathy. She says, no one should be asked to feel empathy or compassion for their oppressors. But I have learned that we do not need to feel anything for our opponents at all in order to feel love. Love is the labor that returns us to wonder. It is seeing another person's humanity, even if they deny our own. We just have to choose to wonder about them. I do not owe my opponents my affection, warmth, or regard, but I do owe myself a chance to live in this world without the burden of hate. Laboring to love my opponents is how I love myself. This is not the stuff of saintliness. This is our birthright. Listening is also a strategic choice. The more I listen, the more I understand. I'm persuaded that there are no such thing as monsters in this world, only human beings who are wounded. Listening enables us to fight in smarter ways for justice. Listening is how we succeed. The question, therefore, is not whether or not to listen to our opponents. The questions are, when is it my role to listen? When am I emotionally and physically safe? When can I take on the labor of listening when others are not safe to do so? Now we have a very cute little video.
If it doesn't work, we don't.
We'll play it right during coffee hour.
Oh wait, no, that's fine. That's unrelated to the video. All right, so the video was just a cute video of two little girls in Spain. They live in Madrid, and I think they're sisters, and they're running around and they're putting little sticky googly eyes on things throughout the city, like on a mailbox or on a door or something like that to make a face. And it's very cute and it has this cute little music in the background. But we'll watch it in coffee hour. All right. So I'm going to be honest with you all here. We mentioned that I'm going on sabbatical. I'm a little bit wiped out. The pandemic stress, especially that first year of it when my husband and I were both working full-time jobs from home with no childcare, is starting to catch up to me. Even though it's been over for a little while, it's like it's just now starting to settle in. I see a nod back there. You're with me, right? Okay. Now I am someone, I have a lot of privilege. I am incredibly grateful. I have employment. I have employment that allowed me incredible flexibility for my children and for my health. But even with all of those wonderful things, it has just been a lot. And I also struggle with a chronic illness, a lifelong chronic illness. It's been acting up kind of a lot lately. And I love my job, but it has been 12 straight years of a 24-hour-a-day job. Even when I'm asleep, I'm thinking about my ministry. And man, I'm ready for a break. And I am not telling you this for pity. I'm fine. But I'm just letting you into my own experience because I know my experience is my own, but I know that some of you share the same struggles. You're dealing with your own things in your own lives. And there's a lot going on. And I hope that sharing can make us feel less isolated, more connected to our shared humanity. And so that is why today I wanted to talk with you about googly eyes. Obviously. I saw these pictures on the internet and I laughed so hard, like uncontrollably hard, out loud. You know, people say LOL, laughed out loud. I actually laughed out loud when I saw these pictures. I don't know why it struck me as funny. Maybe I was just experiencing the right mix of tired and goofy. And I thought to myself, I have to share these in a Sunday service. Now you know how sermons come about. We all need a laugh or a smile right now, and it's good to do that. So that little video of the kids in Spain is really great. If we aren't able to show it this Sunday, I'll send a link and you can share it in your newsletter. But these are some other funny images that I found online. They made me laugh. So we've got the bell peppers here. These are the ones that started me off. The bell peppers. I just get such a kick out of these. Look, they got little teeth. Little seed teeth. You're never going to be able to cut into a bell pepper again and not see this, right? All right, so here's some more. A washing machine with its tongue hanging out, or I hope that's its tongue, I don't know. And then there's like a little Ethernet jack, and it's like, ah! And then there's this one. I love the doorknob. He's like got this big nose. And then that one is called Grandfather Chayote. That's a chayote fruit. And it looks like it has no teeth. It's very cute. That's it. Those are my 3 pictures. All right. So my question is, why were they so funny? So I started looking into this. What makes them so funny? And there's 2 things. I researched this. 2 things that make us get a kick out of inanimate objects with googly eyes. One is the simple shape of the eye. The googly eye is very round and it's got a lot of white, the sclera, which if you look around the room, we actually don't see a lot of the white of everybody's eyes, but it makes them look really surprised. That's one of the things that makes them funny. And the addition of the eyes facilitates something called pareidolia, which is the human tendency to perceive patterns where there aren't any, like shapes in the clouds, or the perception of faces in peppers, or door handles. The things that make me giggle is wondering what that bell pepper is so surprised about. Was it the act of getting cut in half that shocked him? Was she simply surprised by seeing a human face staring back at her? Did they get startled by the dip that was coming their way? Ah! Right? And what was it that made this washing machine sick? I mean, it looks to me like it's a little bit sick. Like, blah. Was it the teenage smelly socks in the load that morning? And I just have so much compassion for little Grandfather Chayote sitting there on top of that little pile. Is he waiting to be chosen? Does he want to stay at the store? I wonder, right? Is he so cute? And that is the other reason that I want to talk to you all about googly eyes today, because if we can anthropomorphize or humanize a door handle, then certainly we can do it for each other. Aha, it all becomes clear. If we have the ability to see a face where one does not exist, and if we can wonder about the circumstances of their expressions, then certainly we have the capacity to see humanity in each other's faces and have curiosity about and compassion for our shared human experiences. And I found that because of everything that I mentioned earlier in this sermon, the stress, the chaos in the world, politics, climate change, everything going on, that I have found that I have a diminished ability, maybe even a diminished willingness to offer grace to other people in my own life. And I'm particularly struggling to offer grace to those with whom I'm in disagreement with, or whose behavior I find challenging. I find myself jumping to conclusions about their intentions, attributing all sorts of negativity to their actions, even when I have no idea what's going on. And I have also been on the receiving end of this a fair amount lately. I find out that someone is really frustrated with me. They're sure that I'm mad at them, when it turns out that I didn't return their call because maybe I didn't get it, or I was sick or something. In that reading we heard earlier, we learned about the fundamental attribution error. And that's the phenomenon that I find myself sort of defaulting to or being on the receiving end of more often lately. It's that common tendency to attribute internal characteristics or motivations to other people's behavior, but not to our own behavior. That is, if you're short with me at the grocery store, obviously you're just a rude person. But if I'm rude to someone at the grocery store, it's because I have a headache or I'm stressed out about work. Now, I'm willing to offer myself more grace in that situation because I understand what's going on in my own life. I'm living it. The fundamental attribution error says that my error is not in extending that same grace to other people, assuming poor character or ill intentions, rather than assuming or just wondering about the fullness of their humanity. Remember the washing machine? I wondered why it was sick. Or the bell pepper? I was curious why it was so surprised. I could generate at least 3 reasons why that bell pepper has a shocked look on its face. Why do so many of us struggle to do this with other humans? The short answer is that our brains use shortcuts to save energy. The fundamental attribution, just like any error or any bias in human thinking, is easier or faster for our brains. Our brains take a ton of energy, tons. So they try to figure out these little shortcuts. And when we're under stress, many of us get even lazier. Our brains get even lazier because there's too much else going on in our brain. So we're really prone to these little bias shortcuts. And if we know anything about the other person, then we might have an easier time extending some grace. So imagine that hypothetical person who's rude to me at the grocery store. If that person has 3 kids in tow, I might think to myself, whoo, that person is juggling a lot right now, instead of how rude. Maybe it's your next door neighbor. You might think, I don't know them that well, but I do know they never use their leaf blower before 9 a.m. They can't be that bad. If you know a little bit, it helps. When I was serving at my previous congregation, which was in Annapolis, Maryland, I found myself on the receiving end of some anger that was totally the result of the fundamental attribution error. And it was almost funny how far out it became. So when I arrived, I was the faith development minister. One of my main jobs was to work with the children and youth of the congregation. And I spent a lot of time those very first few weeks organizing the classrooms, cleaning out the storage closet, getting it ready and usable. And then I realized that the outdoor space was falling apart, the playground. There were rusty nails sticking out of this wooden structure. It was leaning over. It was generally unsafe. Now, in hindsight, I've now been doing this ministry thing for 12 years. So now I know that I should have created more of a process, communicated a little more, but instead I was new. I just decided, let's call together some volunteers, tear it down. We can't have kids playing on this. They're going to get tetanus. So it took, after we tore it down, we realized that there were some major stormwater management issues that had actually caused the problems in the first place. So rather than just build a new playground, we had to mitigate that stormwater management issue. And then a rumor began to spread that the playground was removed because Reverend Christina actually doesn't think children should play. She wants to create this really academic religious education program. Now, looking back on this now, I laugh because if you have known me for even 10 minutes, this sermon is an example, you know that I love people of all ages, really love them. And I love to play and have fun. So this was so far outside of the truth that it was almost shocking. And it kind of hurt to realize that some people thought that my intention was because I'm some sort of child fun hating monster, not because I wanted to try to keep our kids safe. No one even asked me. So once I realized what was going on, I corrected the misunderstanding, and soon everything was well. And this was a relatively low stakes example of the fundamental attribution error in real life. But I bet you can think of some examples when you have done this to someone else, or when you've been on the receiving end of it. It's a way that we flatten each other into two-dimensional caricatures rather than seeing our full humanity. And it's easier to do this with people that we don't know. The person who disagrees with me about vaccines and masks. The person who's on the other side of the political spectrum from me. That person who's counter-protesting when I'm protesting. It's easier when we don't know that person, that all we know is that one thing about them, that they're holding that sign and I'm holding this sign at the rally, and I can assume all sorts of terrible things about them. Now, I want you to think about one of those examples in your mind. Just take a moment, imagine that person, doesn't have to be a real person, who is diametrically opposed to you. You don't know anything about them except for the fact of their philosophical or political opposition. Just imagine them in your mind for a moment. What pops up immediately? You don't have to say it out loud. Just think to yourself, what do you assume about them? They are uninformed at best, probably stupid, right? Maybe they're brainwashed by a certain social media or news outlet that shall remain unnamed. Or maybe they're just bad people. They're unkind, they're selfish. At worst, maybe they're evil. You might have come up with other words. Maybe if you were paying attention to this service, maybe your brain tried to do a runaround around those assumptions. Good for you, that's the goal. Maybe you tried to have a little bit of curiosity for them. Because if we can do it for a door handle, we can do it for our fellow human beings. Valerie Kaur, in that reading we heard, said she tries to see the other as a neighbor, friend, or family member. She says, quote, "As I move through my day and I come across faces on the street or the subway or on the screen, I say in my mind, sister, brother, sibling, aunt, uncle. And I start to wonder about each of them as a person." End quote. Wonder is her antidote to her bias, which she is wise enough to know that she likely holds about almost everyone that she encounters. Silently renaming them as family in her mind helps her to train herself to see them as fully human, as we would our own kin, with strengths and flaws and quirks and whole lives that impact their behavior. It helps to see them in 3 dimensions. Now, I realize that this is hard. In addition to our brain's habit of creating shortcuts, we humans also have a hardwired tendency to be defensive. Often, when we misattribute behavior to some negative intention or character flaw, when we assume that someone is just a jerk because they acted that way, it's because they did something that hurt us. Maybe they hurt us a little, maybe they cut us off in traffic, or maybe they really, truly harmed us. Maybe they're just acting in a way that is not the way that we think people should act, and that's not directly harming us, but our brains get defensive nonetheless. This perceived or real hurt causes all of our defense mechanisms to go off, which are evolutionarily hardwired to keep us safe. And it's so hard for us to consider offering gentleness or grace or wonder. But I absolutely love what Valerie Kaur says about this. She says, I have learned that we do not need to feel anything for our opponents in order to practice love. Love is the labor that returns us to wonder. We just have to choose to wonder about them. I do not owe my opponents my affection, my warmth, or my regard, but I do owe myself a chance to live in this world without the burden of hate. Laboring to love my opponents is how I love myself, she says. And in times like these, times like we are currently living in, we all need as much love as we can. Remember, if we can humanize a vegetable, then we can humanize each other. All it takes is that we slow down a bit and wonder. If not for them, do it for yourself. Be gentle with yourselves, dear ones. You deserve all the love and gentleness that you can get, and all the love and gentleness that you can give. We don't always know the inner battles that each of us are fighting, and we do well to remember to be more compassionate to ourselves and to each other. My prayer is that we can have a little less judgment, a lot more grace and love, and a lot more laughter in our lives. Amen. May it be so.
Thank you, Christina. Very thought-provoking and very worth the smile. And hopefully we'll get to see, I did have the fortune to see the video before the service began. So I hope all of you, we can get the internet back up and running. Remember to join us over here in 15 minutes or so for a talk back with Christina. Please stand as you are able to sing hymn number 1007. And remember Beth's warning about this song. Well, I think we did pretty well on that one. we extinguish our candle with words from Reverend Brian Kelly. The chalice is extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and the hearts and the souls of each one of us. Let us carry the flame with us and share it with those we know, with those we love, and most especially with those we have yet to meet.